Hello everybody, I'm Amy, this is Molly and Shireen, and we are the Cat Doctor. And we are very excited to be celebrating our practice's 10th anniversary. And as part of our celebration all month of all things cat, we are very pleased to invite Bonnie Brincat of Pets Explained.
Bonnie is a pet behaviourist with a master's in clinical animal behaviour from the University of Edinburgh. She is an accredited member of the Association of Pet Behaviour Counsellors and has worked with MPs, DEFRA and several animal rescue organisations. At home, she has a 6-toed Maine Coon named Venus. We are very excited to have her with us today to answer some of your feline behaviour questions.
We love talking about cats and especially why they do the crazy things they do. So let's get stuck right in with our first question. And it's on the topic of feline-human interaction. How does my cat know when a guest is afraid of cats? And why do they approach that person instead of anyone else?
So that's a good question. And we've started there with the assumption that the cat knows that the person is scared. Do they? So I'd be considering, is the cat looking around for maybe what they might want something? They might want food. They may be like, oh, there's a gathering going on. And people that might call themselves cat people, I would call myself a cat person, but people might then go, oh, I'd like to stroke the cat and give it a lot of focus and maybe want to stroke and things like that. And cats generally like their personal space and they may not want to pet at that time. They might just be looking for a warm up. And so they might look for the least intense person in the room, maybe the person who's scared of cats, who's actually just sitting quite quietly in the other side of the room, and then go, that looks like a great place for a rest on their lap. So it's usually the context. So is the person giving a lot of attention and intense social pressure, or are they not because they're scared? Maybe, but that's what the cat's looking at. Think you're great on at a family gathering when you're a child, coming up to you, grabbing your cheeks, going, I remember you when you were 2. You'll probably sit next to someone else. So that's probably how the cats are seeing it.
Very sensible. There's another good one, and one we get asked all of the time, so it's great to hear from an expert. Why do cats ask for strokes and then roll over onto their back as if they're asking for belly rubs, only to then bite your hand?
So cats coming over and requesting fuss. So that can happen. They can be pushing against you with their face, maybe your legs, might jump up on you, might nuzzle into you. And those things can be a request for fuss, but sometimes they are a request for something else. They might ask to be fed that way. They might ask you to play with them that way. They might want you to open the door to the garden. And it might be that actually if we go, you want a stroke. And as humans, we like touching fluffy things. So we automatically will go, yes, well, I'll stroke you while I'm figuring out what you want anyway. If the cat's not into it, that's not what they're requesting. They might show you a behaviour like a bite or like a hiss, which is, nope, that's not what I want. If they run off, fine, they've chosen to have their personal space. If they don't move and they've bitten you, they're probably still waiting on their request. So maybe they wanted food or the garden door opened. To avoid bites in that situation, you can just hold out your hand instead of going in for the full stroke. If the cat nuzzles against it, maybe they just want a stroke. If they don't, they just look at you. Maybe we should go through the checklist and see what else they want. But it is a good question, specifically with belly rubs. Studies have shown that, generally speaking, cats prefer their strokes to be around their face area, their cheeks, on their head, maybe sometimes the neck and the ear area, but the belly is one of the places where actually they're not fond of. So if we see a cat on their back, I think, maybe it's asking for a belly rub. It potentially might not be, or it might just be trying to scratch the back on whatever's on the floor. So considering whether a belly rub is actually what the animal wants is worthwhile.
Don't be fooled.
Yeah. Excellent. Moving on to the topic of feline vocalization, or the way they communicate through sound. Why do most cats only seem to meow at humans and not at other cats?
So, generally speaking, they won't meow at each other. A couple of exceptions are mothers and kittens will meow at each other quite a bit. And sometimes in other interactions outdoors with other cats, maybe when they see one they don't like very much, you might see some vocalizing, but generally speaking, it's just us that they'll meow at. Reasons why are thought to be they learn that it works to get our attention. There's not a lot of other things they can do to get our attention, especially if we're not directly next to them. And actually, versus wild cats, house cat meows are shorter and they're higher pitched. which is easier for us to hear. And they also can have a different type of purr called a solicitation purr, which is higher pitched, which is when they want food. So if you ever have your cat coming up to you and as you're making food, you hear them sort of purring, going,
Very
That's
excited.
quite a good example, actually. Whilst they're doing that's also a solicitation purr. So the thought process is they adapt their vocalizations to whatever works best for them to get our attention, all the resources that they want.
So it will vary between people and their particular cats. So they might talk to a person differently than they would to their partner.
Potentially. I think also there's a little bit of research to say that they've adjusted the pitch of their meows, generally speaking, as a species in domestication, to be more similar to the frequency of babies crying, because it's a noise that humans are wired not to ignore. So it's very adaptive, to be fair.
Yes.
So they're training us.
Yeah,
Yes.
they are. Very much.
I'd argue that, yeah.
Okay, so that's how they communicate with us. What about the outside world? They make some strange noises sometimes when they're looking out the window. It's like a chirping or a chittering sound, but they don't seem to do that anywhere else.
So what I'd call that is something that I'd label as a barrier reaction. So if your cat actually has access to the bird, so let's say if they were in the garden stalking the bird, you probably wouldn't hear that noise. So it's natural to, well, why are you doing it inside? When they're really focused on the stalking and they're coming up to the bird, they're very focused on that and they're not making any noise because it wouldn't be effective to their prey strategy to actually get it. When they know they have no access to the bird, they're getting quite excited when seeing it. They know that they can't get it. And I think the chatter is what I'd call it, the chattering noise, is a little bit of that frustration and excitement tipping over into vocal noise, and which is why you don't see it when they're outside with the prey.
Fair enough. My own cat, Marley, she talks to birds, but she never talks to me. She doesn't make any noise. She just comes up and rubs and rolls around and looks really cute instead and gets what she wants. Why do some cats not meow at all?
Well, I'd go back to, I think, the last part of your sentence there was when she rolls on her back, she gets what she wants.
Answer my own question.
I think the answer there is she doesn't need to.
Well, another one people ask us a lot of the time is, rather than just eat the food out of the bowl, why do they pick it out of the bowl and put it on the floor and eat it from there?
So there are a variety of reasons that they could be doing that. If a cat lives in a multi-cat household, they might be moving their food away from the other cat. So being solitary hunters, naturally they wouldn't want to be sharing their food with others as a resource. So it might be that I'm going to move it away from the other cat in the home. It could also be a sign of caching. So like squirrels wanting to sort of bury some for later, moving it, sometimes the cats will move it around and you might even see sort of litter trait behaviours next to it. Even if it's just a wooden floor, there's nothing that can be moved or covered. They will still do that behaviour if they are a cat that's disposed to it, even though nothing ever moves, and they'll do it for most of their life. So I think it's more of like a reflexive, natural, innate behaviour post-eating. Also to consider, is the water near the food? Naturally, they wouldn't want their water source to be contaminated with the leftovers of what they may have killed with prey. And so if you've got one of those things where the water's right next to the food bowl, they might be taking it away from preference because they want them to be quite separate.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually.
Seen a lot of cats do it.
Definitely.
All right, finally, difficult question a lot of people struggle with and one we get asked a lot. So what is the best way to introduce a cat into a home that already has a dog?
Okay. So someone asking that question might have already considered what I'm about to say, but they might not have done. So if they haven't, I'd say number one would be considering personalities. So when we're introducing any two animals, regardless of species, we've got to consider, are they likely to get on first? So before we put them in a confined space to find out. So for example, if you've got one very, very elderly animal who really likes a slow pace of life, let's say the dog, and then you bring in a very young kitten that's likely to really want to play quite a lot, those probably might not be a good match. And it's important to consider that not all matches will be successful. So first things first, thinking about the dog. Have they been exposed to cats before? Have they lived harmoniously with a cat before? Do they chase cats outside? Yeah. And just generally in their interactions, are they quite interactive and social and friendly and curious of new things? Or are they worried or standoffish? Because then you might have an issue. On the cat side of things, same sort of thing. Has the cat been exposed to dogs before? Will they be scared of them or not? Are they generally a little bit of a scaredy cat? How do they react to new things or people? And just their general life experience of exposure to dogs, even other animals, are they accepting of other species in general? Useful to keep in mind. Third thing is the environment. So dogs very much feel that their owners provide them with a lot of comfort in the world. If they're anxious, they might look to the owner. Cats very different, and they will look to their environment. Where is my safe space? Where is my food? Do I need to go out of my area to find my litter tray? So can we provide an environment where initially, at the very least, we're able to have sort of a separate room for the cat with all of its resources, litter tray, food, water, so that it can just sort of stay in a safe zone. If we have that sort of space, then potentially, right, okay, we might have a good match between two, considering moving them in together. How do we do that? So the next step would be just prep. So ensuring that you have all of the cat's resources in one place so it doesn't have to leave. Brilliant. Same with the dog, its resources doesn't have to come into contact with the cat. And then getting something that's a barrier where the animals can see and smell each other but not have contact. So baby gate is great, and you can also get these fantastic like standalone hinged gate barriers that also have a door in the middle, so you can then let them in and out when you decide to.
Nice.
So setting that up is perfect. Next step, you've got your cat, or you're about to, fantastic. I'd allow the cat to settle in the home first. We don't want to be sort of testing how are you going to get on with the dog when they don't even know where they are. So allowing them to settle in, become bonded a little bit, friendly with owners, now they know who you are, feel comfortable in their own little room and environment, maybe starting to explore a little bit more of the house without the dog present. Perfect, you're ready to try integration. Next, using that barrier. So after as well, maybe doing some scent swapping. So having some of the scents of the dog and the cat swapped when they're not in each other's presence, getting used to the smell. And then allowing short, sweet greets through that barrier. Not necessarily forcing them to come together, but having something fun in the same room as them. So, oh, there's a cat or a dog there. Okay, fine, I can be okay with that and just carry on my merry way, because what we don't want is for them to be too focused on each other, which means that when we maybe do open that gate a bit later, they're going to be quite intense with interacting with each other. We want them to be completely relaxed. Yes, you're there. That's nice, but I can still be calm and get on with other things, because that's what we expect them to do later. And then if that goes well, gradually extending that, the time periods we're doing that, gradually opening the gate, allowing them to mingle with each other, just ensuring that the cat always has a space to get away if it wants to. High up holly diggles are great when your dog can't reach. And access to move and hide outside should it want to do so. Otherwise, it can feel a bit cornered. It's a long answer to your short question, but there it is.
Definitely worth thinking about and getting it right.
Yes.
Complicated.
Yeah.
Well, I understand if you get it wrong at the beginning, it's very difficult to get it right later on, right?
Yeah, because I think where you start off with two animals that don't have an understanding of each other, and if they then learn quite quickly that the other one is scary and I don't like them, you have a lot of undoing work to do, which then takes longer, and then you start from scratch there. One interesting thing, actually, which I'm asked quite a lot, is kittens. So when people get a cat as an addition to an existing cat or dog, the first thought seems to be, I'll get a kitten, I'll get a youngster. One thing to think about there is the youngster probably doesn't really have much finesse in their social interactions. They may be quite inappropriate, so really persisting with play. And sometimes they're not the best additions to especially older animals or adult animals who maybe aren't tolerant of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think about as well when thinking about adding a cat to a home.
And the motivation for doing it as well.
Yeah.
You know, trying to get a cat, a brother or a sister isn't necessarily what your cat wants.
Let's do it.
Yes, as so they're cats were originally solitary species. That doesn't mean they're not social to a degree, but it's to a degree, and that really varies on the cat as well. Some cats quite like company. Usually that's their own sibling that they've grown up with from birth. Some cats will not tolerate company. They really just prefer, in terms of feline company, they just prefer to be on their own with their human family. So cat, you're absolutely right. What the cat prefers in terms of social context is also key.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That's all we have for you today. Huge thanks to Bonnie for joining us this afternoon and answering some questions about feline behaviour. She'll be doing a webinar for us later this month about the often very complex relationships that cats have with each other. So watch this space. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you and your cat soon.
And thank you for having me.